Welcome back to Finessing Hollywood, presented by Commune Productions with Isaiah. That's Ben. And we're here to talk to you guys about our experiences in the industry and, part of our journey and how we're navigating this crazy epidemic of dreamers.
Ooh, it's pretty good.
See?
It's pretty good. So, we just got some news that we have to talk about.
Yeah, so I guess breaking news out of the entertainment industry, the Directors Guild reaches a tentative deal with the studios and streamers. Their negotiations, their contract was up June 30th.
Mm-hmm.
So,
man,
it is June 4th. They started negotiating last week.
These brothers did not play.
Historic deal. Congratulations to the directors and everything that they were able to accomplish. Man. Wow, what a feat. Writers are still on strike, and since the negotiations fell through, the AMPTP has refused to even come back to the negotiating table with the writers, which...
They've refused totally, or like...
Yeah.
They could do it in July or something?
I mean, they just decided to not have any conversations with the writers. They have not reached out.
I'm assuming you have the deal there. What are we looking at? What did DGA get?
So I'm looking at this article from the Hollywood Reporter, written by Katie Kilkenny and Leslie Goldberg, the TV editors for THR. Let's see. Less than a month in negotiations. They struck the new 3-year deal. Let's see. I'm going to see if I can get to these terms. But it basically, like, in a quick summary, while I find the full terms here, it gains in wages and benefits, streaming residuals, AI protections, and more. All of which were in the Writers Guild negotiations that were at least responded to the writers as refused to counter, rejected our proposal, right? Like that. By the way, none of us are in the guilds, so we're all kind of on the outside looking in. This is just very interesting. Me personally as a writer, seeing how it just feels like every year the craft of writing gets rejected by the industry for some reason. Like,
so someone is still writing, right? Like, there's no way around. Like, someone's gonna write something.
Yeah.
But now, and this is my one thing that, because there's good writers, there's bad writers, and there's good scripts and bad scripts, whether they're written by good writers or not. But if every actor came into a production independent of the other actors and the story, right, and just decided, well, this is the character that I want to play, and these are the characters that I want to play, they might have great characters and great backstories, but without that backbone of the story to at least guide the narrative, right? Like, we can't just have a bunch of people improvising random characters without knowing, like, what story is being told.
Right. Obviously, we don't have the details of the...
I got it right here.
Oh, you have the actual details for DGA?
Yeah.
What they got?
Yeah.
Oh, I need to hear this.
All right, here we go. So, wages and benefits, groundbreaking gains in wages and benefits, including 5% increase in the first year, 4% in the second year, 3.5% in the third year, and an additional 0.5% to fund parental leave benefits. Global streaming residuals, substantial increase in residuals for dramatic programs made for SVOD by securing a new pay structure for foreign residuals, 76% increase in foreign residuals for the largest platforms. Yeah. AI is not a person, and generative AI cannot replace the duty performed by DGA members.
Oh.
Terms and conditions for SVOD for improving residuals for non-dramatic programs. So I'm assuming that's the variety and reality. Yeah. New high budget AVOD terms and conditions for more better residuals on platforms such as Freevee, Tubi, and Roku. And that includes UPMs and assistant directors that will share in the residuals on those platforms as well. Let's see. Historic first-time compensation for the months of soft prep for featured directors. which is very interesting because they refuse to negotiate for feature writers.
Refused, bro.
So interesting. Let's see. Episodic directors. So higher pay and expanded post-production creative rights for episodic TV directors, which that, for me, that's a direct, like, they're taking away, like, so let's talk about this one real quick, because I've had conversations with a few different showrunners and like listening to podcasts and things like that. I think for the most part, everyone's okay if the episodic director wants to stay on a little bit longer through their cut.
Yeah.
Right? That's fine. But giving a director of an episodic, like, episode of TV, like, what kind of creative rights are we talking? Because it doesn't exactly say, but I don't know. It's very interesting. Like, they're not the creators of the show. They're not running the whole season. They're literally hired to come in on an episode.
Well,
so I'd be very curious to see the specifics for, like, what that means as far as, like, more post-production creative rights.
How much more of the elements are there?
2 more.
Okay, let's hear those real quick, and then I got a thought.
Reduction in length of assistant director day by an hour. Added an additional day to production for hour-long programs, so it's guaranteed extra shoot days. And then some more safety concerns. This is a good one. Safety advancement, requiring employment of dedicated safety supervisors, expanded safety training programs for directors and their teams, and the ban of live ammunition on set.
Here's my question, because I see what you're saying, and for those of you who may not fully understand, usually the creators and showrunners of a TV show are usually writers. It's usually just how it is.
Yeah, I mean, the way it's usually broken down is, like, features are a director's medium, and TV is where the writers are basically like king.
There was a line there about UPMs getting a little bit more love too.
For residuals.
So I wonder, is AMTP, are they looking at maybe having directors and producers take over show running? Like, is it going to be the kind of thing where now director and producer, they get to pitch an idea and then they put together the room, but they become the showrunner? Because everything you just read for the DGA is like, it's kind of a huge slap in the face for all the things that they denied for WGA. Like 76% on international
residuals, yeah.
Like, because WGA, I don't even think they asked for any number that big on either.
No.
So it's like, I wonder if there is this idea of, like, they're thinking, well, between directors and producers and AI, we can get the kind of stories we need. We'll give the directors more creative control for episodic.
And, like, it's interesting because, like, I would understand if, there are these, like, auteur TV showrunners who write and direct every episode, right? Or even shows where, like, the director and the, showrunner, writer, EP, they have good relationships. Thinking example for Community, Dan Harmon and the Russo brothers, right? The Russo brothers directed a lot of episodes of Community. Not all of them, but they directed a lot of them. And they were also EPs for, I think, 3 or 4 seasons of that show. That would make sense that, like, they would have a little bit more control in post. But, like, that one guy who directed one episode in season 2 getting creative control on his edit that could kind of screw up production for future episodes as well as just, like, how things have been done.
I wonder if directors are being signed on for more than just one episode now. Because,
I mean, maybe, but that's not even something that's in the terms. So that
is part of this thinking about the state of episodic content today, where it's not largely broadcast, it's largely streaming. Like, is that, do you think that's a big thing where, a season is 10, 15 episodes now?
Yeah.
It's not 25 where you do need, like, 15 different directors to step in.
Yeah, that depends. I mean, a lot of shows I know especially the streamers, because they don't have as big of budgets or they don't have as much time in prep or even just in shoot days, they do block shooting. And so with the block schedule, you kind of have to have less directors. You know, I mean, I think of like Andor, right? It was 12 episodes of Andor.
Yeah.
And that was a high budget show. But the way they blocked it out, the way, what's his name? Creator.
It wasn't Tony Gilroy.
It was.
Okay.
Yeah. The way that Tony Gilroy talked about it is he said they broke it up into like 4 blocks, and each director directed 3 episodes. And so when you watch the show, right, like
they
each 3 episodes is kind of like its own mini arc within the season.
Yeah.
Shows like that makes a little bit of sense why the director would have a little bit more oversight on post, because they're kind of running that block.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It could be it's going to change a lot with how I think TV is produced, and I don't know how good that is for the writers.
It baffles me to think that the writers have so little to do with film. But well, okay. It's because here's another thing that I do understand. Directors are kind of talent as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you kind of know, not all directors, but directors can develop an audience and a following and stuff. For people to know who wrote a thing, like you're a cinephile. You know, you're that deep in the industry where you're aware, oh, I really like how so-and-so writes their characters. I'd like to be on one of their scripts. But I wonder if it's an element of like, there's not enough celebrity behind writers. And so from the AMTP's perspective, they're just like, we'd rather give money towards a director that goes on the tours and does the press junkets and all that stuff, blah, 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 and we can build them up to be part of the reason why, from the mind of so-and-so, you know?
I mean, but that's why executive producers have existed for years. I mean, I think about like a ton of shows that came out on TNT like in the mid 2000s, right? And it was like Falling Skies, executive produced by Steven Spielberg, and you're just like, really?
Yeah.
But okay, I'll watch it
because
his name is on it. So like, I don't understand what the difference is there, right? Because that show was still created and run by writers, you know. Yeah. I have a follow-up article released by The Hollywood Reporter with the Writers Guild response to the DGA contract. A lot of the writers are not happy.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Who are they mad with the DGA? Or are they mad with AMTP? Or all of them can catch hands?
So here's like one of the points it says, right? It says, as one of its key talking points, the Writers Guild of America has stressed unity with other guilds in its ongoing strike against the AMPTP over such issues as streaming transparency, wage increases, and AI safeguards. While the DGA was wildly expected to close a deal with the AMPTP and avoid a strike of its own, the tentative deal, dubbed historic by its leadership, has not gone over well with members of the Writers Guild. And I think as I'm getting into reading this, some of these responses are not from the Writers Guild in particular, just from members of the guild who are speaking out independently. I just want to put that out there. Again, we are not representing either of the guilds in this situation. Just reading what we're seeing. Writer Amy Berg, she wrote on Jack Ryan, Warrior Nun, said, thrilled that the DGA was able to use the power of the WGA's labor action to secure a deal that works for them. We proposed a number of these terms before the AMPTP cut off negotiations in order to hand a deal to the DGA. They will continue to not speak to us, offering them next to SAG. But we have needs in areas they don't, and will secure a deal that works for us. This isn't it. Also keep in mind, SAG is due to announce the results of their strike authorization vote, and getting this done quickly is an attempt to undermine its impact. Between that and the strike, the DGA was situated well to get something that works for them, not us. Showrunner Stephen Knight. Zero surprise the AMPTP continues to use their title playbook, and the DGA sadly continues to toe the line, knowing that they can draft off of the WGA's resolve to strike for a truly historic deal. Disappointing, but not surprising. So I've seen one, I would say, somewhat positive response to this, right? Because a lot of people are asking, right, like, so the DGA is just going to leave the writers hanging. What's going on? What are we doing? Showrunner Robert King, he and his wife co-created The Good Wife and The Good Fight on CBS. He says this, and I think it's actually brilliant and maybe a little bit optimistic for those of us who are a little bit more cynical in this situation. But he just said, we all draft off of each other. DGA gets a better deal because we're striking. Then SAG, with in theory the strike authorization vote in hand, uses the DGA deal to build on, and then hopefully the writers will get brought back to the table and we can build on that. So
Sure.
we'll end up still being the last ones to negotiate, but if we're seeing that everyone else is getting historic deals and then they choose to refuse to offer that same courtesy to the writers, I think that's one of those situations where everyone else will look back and really see, like, I don't know. We'll see.
That is optimistic. Obviously, a huge element about this is, well, actually, I think I got two thoughts. Before I get into the AI conversation, this deal said nothing about viewership, right? Isn't that something that WGA was like, hey, we would like to know?
Well, that's part of the residuals conversation, is that residual, it's either you're going to just pay us more upfront for residuals, or there needs to be a little bit more honesty and transparency.
So the fact that they're going to give them residuals means they're going to be transparent to the point of,
I think, to an extent. Yeah. But also, I mean, I think about it like Netflix has been notorious about not sharing its viewer data.
Yeah.
And
they started that whole trend with streaming.
Right.
No one shares.
But now Netflix has an ad tier. And if they're running ads, the advertisers need to know who's watching what and how much.
Yes.
And as soon as that starts to come out, then everyone will be able to see it. And so that's part of why making these deals about residuals now is important, because this is the deal that we have to live with for the next 3 years. And we could get seriously screwed if we don't get the right terms in contract.
Script writing with AI it's here, and it's going to get better. For how clunky and inhuman it is now, it will get better. But I've also heard a very interesting thing about, well, just AI video generation and the potential reality that you can type in a genre, a story type that you'd like to see, an actor's face you'd like to see in it, and then it'll spit out that movie, that story. Margot Robbie in a Western, against Samuel Jackson when he's 20, kind of a thing.
So this is interesting, right? Because in this bulletin from the Hollywood Reporter, right, it says, regarding artificial intelligence, right? Groundbreaking agreement confirming that AI is not a person and that generative AI cannot replace the duties performed by members of the DGA.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that means any company that is willing to use AI in some sort of capacity to create videos and things like that cannot be like one of the struck companies or like a part of the AMPTP under this contract with the DGA. And I think that's the same thing that the WGA is asking, right? Like, we're not asking independent filmmakers or, low budget filmmakers on, like, say, Shudder, right? Like, to follow these specific terms, right? It's the studios with the money and the distribution platforms that have the ability to secure the livelihood and career of writing in entertainment. Yeah. And they won't.
Well, and so that's actually kind of part of my point. It makes sense that essentially a director tells their team how to get the thing done.
Mm-hmm.
Very simplified terms. Would it not be directing by telling AI to give you a certain script? The AI then becomes the writer.
Mm-hmm.
The director is just the prompt giver. Spits out the script. Director does a director's pass on what the AI writer has done, and then they move on. Is it possible that that's what they're comfortable with, the AMTP?
I think the AMPTP is comfortable with whatever saves them money.
But that also opens up the appeal for human branded content. If it turns out that DGA got this deal,
Mm-hmm.
and when we get down to it, WGA still doesn't get shit. And now we have DGA directors making content with AI scripts. It's possible that gives the opportunity for a new kind of brand of like, hey, these scripts were written by humans. This entire process was human made, as opposed to, I mean, this is speculation right now. We still got to see what happens with SAG and WGA, but do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see that. But I also think that if that were to happen, I think it would take a lot for the studios, the AMPTP, to even admit publicly that they're like actively selling AI content. You know what I mean? Like,
well,
like if there's gonna be a difference between human made versus AI generated, right? I think there are a lot of people, especially in the industries or like the academy members who are voting, right? Like these different governing bodies, like it within Hollywood, but then also just the general public. Some people might be interested to watch a couple of AI films, but it's kind of like that "Made in the USA" sticker, right? Like that's gonna make a difference in like what people are like willing to do or not do, And I think as soon as you start separating like made by humans versus generated by AI or whatever it is that they're doing, I think you run the likelihood of actually losing more money on the AI content because people are going to want to just support. They're not going to want to just blindly give money to corporation if it's not supporting the human. I don't know. Maybe I'm a little bit too optimistic about
it. Sounds a little
people
optimistic
being
because Oscars and Emmys, those shows, they're not for people that go see Fast and the Furious.
Sure.
Yeah. Like actually, that's been a big problem with the Oscars.
But I think
lately.
that's also another thing. Just speaking about the awards, right? Like, I think that's one of those places where, like, if you're trying to work in prestige, you can't be working with non-human, created.
So that's,
you know what I mean? Like that might be one of those delineating factors where it's just like,
and we've talked about like when does the Academy say, okay, well, first of all, to be submitted for best screenplay, it cannot be generated by AI,
right?
And maybe it's going to be something only the outline could be generated. I don't know what the rule would be,
there's just got to be a regulation in place, and I think that's what's missing right now is any kind of regulation on like how much.
Well, and the thing is the Academy is going to have a regulation for the 30 applicants that are going to qualify. So you're going to have an element, and same thing for like the Emmys, right? I'm certain.
Yeah.
So you're going to have an element of like, if we're trying to get the prestige play, like with HBO, that's their whole bread and butter, they're going to have to make a very firm choice to even just qualify for these awards, which obviously the awards are a key marketing ploy for a lot of this content. This is just, it's all a little crazy. Because I could absolutely see the majority of content for Netflix. I could see the majority of that content being AI generated without them flinching.
Yeah.
Just from log
in
line to
my
synopsis.
opinion, though, when I see that, I just think like, then just don't be a part of the AMPTP. You don't need to have, you know, these terms with the guilds, right? But then don't brag about having the best creators and the best content, but then not use those creators and you're just using AI, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a point of decorum, but, you know.
This is what we get for asking billionaires to be ethical.
I would never ask that. Yeah, that's, I mean, look, as a producer, if you're telling me there's a fast and efficient way to get me a script, I'm taking it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take it. But that's coming from a very specific perspective. And that's also, you know, if I want something fast and quick, that means I want Burger King, right? I want McDonald's.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to do what it's going to do for that moment, right? Mm-hmm. But then ultimately, everybody wants to go to the steakhouse.
Yeah.
If I'm going to actually do something celebratory, if I'm going to go on a date, I'm going to go somewhere where I know that there is human care put towards something that makes it special.
Yeah.
So it's like even as a producer, sure, I'm going to want just give me scripts right now. But ultimately, like I'm going to want to find that script that just makes me feel. Mm-hmm. And something where I read it and I'm like, oh yeah, this is why I'm in the game. I need to make this movie.
Yeah.
But admittedly, it's going to be 1 out of 10 scripts. I don't know. If I'm lucky. I don't know how many scripts I've read that have moved me so much that it's like, oh, yes, we must make this. You know? I mean, we talked a little bit about that before. I think I've given you one of
those.
Bounce back.
Yeah.
Once it's done.
Yeah.
Once it's done. And see, that's kind of part of the point.
Yeah.
Right? From producer to writer, get me the fucking script. Yeah, well, it just means a lot to me. You know who doesn't have feelings? The AI.
Yeah.
Don't let me go to AI and say, write a story from Isaiah's experience as a basketball player. Yeah. Dealing with his parents.
Yeah.
Because it'll write a perfect script.
Will it?
2 of the pages will just be the alphabet. Forwards and backwards. Formatted perfectly. This is not dialogue.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably a good time to cut off. Rachel didn't say shit on this one.
I'm so sorry.
I told you I had nothing to say about this. I didn't want to be in this one.
Well, we'll cut you out. It's fine. Okay. I'll cut off that question. I might as well stop it. Jump into something else. Man, that's...
We can get into something a little bit more uplifting. Let's talk about Spider-Man.
Yeah, I was hoping Neil would show
on the
up.
pod.
Let's see. All right. Hold it.